Signalis, a indie survival horror game developed by Rose Engine and published by Humble Games. Rose Engine is a two-man team, which is nuts to me after playing this game. It's always very impressive to see small teams pull off so much. They've done all the work themselves besides getting some external help with music. Signalis was the first game out of Rose Engine, starting development back in 2014. The original vision was a lot different, being a more 2D side-scroller. Then the game would mould into what we see today, having a third-person top-down view, using low-poly PS1 style 3D models in front of 2D backgrounds. Overall, the game has a real PlayStation 1 style to it in terms of the look department. The game takes heavy inspiration from classic survival horror, especially Resident Evil and Silent Hill, which I will be mentioning a lot. With gameplay, you need to find key items to progress and solve puzzles while also combating threats. And you have limited inventory space as well as ammo is hard to come by. We have a pure survival horror experience on our hands here. Plus the overall story has a lot of mystery to it. Signalis was a real surprise for me. I didn't know anything about the game leading up to its release. I seen YouTubers Avalanche Reviews and Boulder Punch put up a video for the game on release. Just in the titles of the videos they praised the game highly. So I thought, maybe I should check this out. Survival horror is my favourite genre to play. Just judging off those video titles, I thought I'd get the game and judge it for myself. I didn't look into the game at all before I started playing it for myself as well. I am so glad I did that, because damn is this game incredible. For this video I want to go over the game and give my overall thoughts, but without spoilers. Signalis is set in an era with space travel and advanced technology. To combat all the multiple colonies that have been developed, a workforce is created consisting of androids called replicas. Human commanders called gestalts manage and give direction to replicas, while replicas handle physical labour and everyday tasks. You play a replica called Elster. You wake up in a crashed space shuttle, and your partner is missing, and so you go looking for her. Leaving the shuttle, you'll come across a deep hole that leads into another hole. We pop out into a room. Then a cutscene plays showing different types of images. Once I seen all that, I thought, oh, I'm in for something special. From there you end up in a mining facility. There you will find a lot of dead people and the replicas have lost their minds, attacking you on sight. The replicas have been somewhat reanimated. You can read up here and there to know how they became that way. Basically, replicas got infected and died from a sickness, later to be reanimated, becoming a walking corpse. Having no control whatsoever, they will attack you on sight. They do come off pretty creepy. I will say though, I didn't think the game was scary. It can be very tense at times, overwhelming, and somewhat creepy with how the soundscape and environments work. Once you are spotted, the sound design picks up and they somewhat scream. It makes me feel tense every time, I swear. You will have a couple different enemy types to go up against. I would get pretty overwhelmed at times, having sometimes up to 5 on screen, which might have been a little bit of overkill. Having more than 3 will get pretty tricky to overcome, so you'll be better off to sneak past or run. But the hitboxes can be a little off. Sometimes I felt like I got hit from far, but I didn't run into that issue too much to spend a lot of time talking about it. And there's a few boss fights throughout as well which I didn't think were too bad. Basically very old school survival horror. Go to one corner and shoot, then repeat. The last boss fight is a bit more tricky, but I won't spoil that. The gameplay is where mainly Resident Evil comes in, with sprinkles of Silent Hill. If you've played any of the PS1 Resident Evil games, you'll feel right at home here. You are set off in an environment. You explore, finding ways to progress while combating the creatures. Environments look great. There's a lot of details in environments and they use the source of light really well throughout. Later on, environments will become more corrupted and disturbing. Reminds me a lot of the Otherworld from the original Silent Hill. Things can look very bloody, flesh patches all over the place. Looks great. The futuristic style, but also having some retro items in environments is pretty cool as well. Also, I think the overall map design is pretty good, being not too hard to read. With shooting, you'll have an automatic aim which can be turned off in the options. and you can move while aiming, but it does lower your accuracy. Once your target is downed, you'll have to go up to it and do a Silent Hill stomp on them to keep them down. But they won't keep them down forever. They'll get up over time. To avoid that, you will need to burn the bodies, very similar to the Crimson Heads. You'll get a good range of different weapons given to you throughout the game. The shotgun is king, of course. In terms of the shooting, I did sometimes find the lock-on to not go where I wanted it. Like I had sometimes where a creature was right up to me, but I'd lock on to one that was off in the distance. But like I mentioned, you can free aim in those situations through the options if you're looking to avoid that issue. Also, something that can be a pain is sometimes you'll have trouble going into doors because you missed the button prompt. It can get really annoying when you're running to a door to escape a creature, but can't get through because there's a small window to press into the door. This also happens with items. The auto-lock not doing what you want sometimes or interacting with doors and items is really the main issues in this game, which I'm sure can be patched out. So really those issues might not be irrelevant in time. You have 6 item slots to deal with. Not much at all. Very much like Chris in the original Resident Evil. Item boxes are here throughout to help you store items not useful for the time. I did find myself getting a little frustrated, but in a good way, and I'll explain why to me. Going to a bunch of rooms to find key items I would need at some point, but wasn't too sure what to do with them yet. But I'll be going back and forth to the item box a lot, chucking things in. That probably took up most of my time. Because you only have 6 slots, you really don't have a lot of room for different types of items. Like I would mainly take a gun and ammo, as well as health. That leaves me 3 slots. Plus later in the game you'll gain a flashlight which you'll need for certain rooms that are pitch black, leaving 2 slots. Now this could go into my own personal issues. I can't just leave items around, I gotta pick all that shit up. And so I spent a lot of time going back and forth to the item box through this game. Really you have to think, should I risk taking no health or bullets so I can pick up more to progress? Which I think is great, and of course survival horror. Basically a risk and reward situation. You have to really think things through and plan out what you are going to do, which is pure survival horror, and I love it. Going through the second time, of course it's a bit easier to know when to leave things or not. Some of the key items you will pick up are used for puzzles in the areas. The puzzles were damn hard, which is very refreshing. I can't remember the last time a game made me actually stop to think how I'll do something. I had to screenshot notes that I would forget codes for, and write things down. How crazy is that? I haven't done things like that since the old Silent Hill games. It was great. It's nice to have to think about puzzles. You do have a eye camera you can use to take screenshots to help with puzzles, which I didn't know about my first playthrough. I just used my phone. I did see the item, but I didn't really think about it. Second time through, I worked it out, and it's a great tool to use since you'll definitely need it. The puzzles can be hard, but I suggest really sticking them out before looking up what to do. It's a great feeling when you work them out since they are more unique in terms of puzzles. A very unique feature within this game that goes into puzzles and a little combat is the radio you have. You'll be able to access frequencies that let you know what numbers you'll need for locks, as well as there's an enemy type that you will need to access the frequency on screen to take it out. When I first came across these guys, I definitely felt unsettled. A lot of things are happening all at once. It does a great job to put you on edge. The overall sound design is pretty great in this game. Sounds with the creatures, the guns, the radios, and the overall atmosphere. The soundtrack really gives me a Kuriyama Oka vibes with how you have the loud metal banging and just the overall loud and weird sounds. But also you have the really vibey piano keys, for example. Going into a safe room, you'll have a really relaxing music piece, which I've always loved in the Resident Evil games. Plus in one safe room you'll have the Moonlight Sonata theme play, bringing me back to the original Resident Evil. The game does a great job to keep you on edge with its sound design, environments, and relentless creatures. So going into a safe room works perfect here as it does for the Resident Evil games, to give you that breather. Plus you have a Silent Hill style save system which is fun. And yes, I know I keep bringing up Resident Evil and Silent Hill, but there is a lot of elements to pick up on which are inspired by those games. And I am personally a massive fan of those franchises. So forgive me, even with the game having a lot of elements from those games, I think it does a lot in its lore, environments, art style and story to curve its own lane. I really love playing this game. I find myself going into the survival horror comfort zone, checking every room, piecing together what items I need, always checking the map to plan out a route, making sure to use my ammo as less as possible, mainly running past creatures and the puzzle solving. It all feels great, especially since that style of play is my favourite and it's pretty rare these days. Now let's get more into the story. No spoilers of course. How can I sum up the overall story? This game has a lot going on with its storytelling, stylish cutscenes and within them shown images very quickly, as well as you'll read a lot of notes fleshing out the world and minds of characters. There's a lot going on, and it's hard to really put it all into a full picture after the first playthrough. The more you go through though, the more you'll pick up. You'll finish the game with a new theory or see a detail you just looked past the last time. That's how I felt after my second playthrough anyways. You'll come across replicas still alive and you'll notice they look exactly like you, which is very interesting. You'll learn through notes how the replicas are created and why, as well as how the overall world works in this time. Most notes spread out through the game do a great job to flesh out the world, and there's notes that are more personal, ranging from really sad to really disturbing. There's a lot to read up on and everything is really well written. There's no voice acting in the game, so most of the information you will get is in the notes. I loved reading a lot of it, but near the end of the game I did find myself skipping through some here and there. There is a lot, but to get the most out of the story, it's in your best interest to read up a bit. Also, you'll have sections of the game in first person, which is pretty cool and can be unsettling. These sections just add to the overall story, and the game looks great in first person, especially being on this train. I do want to do multiple playthroughs of this game when I can, and would love to revisit it on this channel in the future. I've gone through the game twice before making this video and I still feel like I'm not understanding enough. But this feels like a game you have to live with. Playing this game I had Silent Hill 2 pop into my head a lot. The story elements really bring themselves together to give you the dreamy feel as well as question what is real or not. Not to mention small things like looking into mirrors or jumping down holes. There was a lot of touching moments in the game too. Cinematics are within an anime style which I didn't mind. You get a lot of fantastic shots. They are few and brief but add to the overall feel nicely. I won't give context for the people who don't know, but there was this one part where you were dancing with someone, and honestly it really resonated with me. The ending is a real gut punch as well. It's an ending I found myself thinking about long after I stopped playing the game. There is multiple endings in the game and they all bring up their unique theories, but the one I really got took me back. It was called Memory. There is a somewhat baiting switch in the game that took me by surprise as well, and I thought it was done pretty damn well. All I'll say is boot up the game again after your first playthrough, getting to an end screen. Overall I thought the story was pretty great. I'm excited to watch videos analysing the story in the future, as well as making my own theories down the line. This is a pretty incredible game and I'm so happy that I gave it a go. I enjoyed it so much that I ordered a physical copy from PlayAsia for the shelf. If you are a survival horror fan, I can't recommend this game enough. I think it's pretty unique and Rose Engine should be very proud with what they've created. And I'm excited to see what's next for Rose Engine. With that though, thank you very much for watching. If this video served to entertain, be sure to like, subscribe and share.